at a relaxed pose.
Last week he did very well with it. So every walk we went out lunches 3 times a day. He always had a collar on. I was telling Enrique the first couple of days, whenever he saw the collar, he would just sprint to his bed.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
We're at a point now, it's on him. He walks, his tail's up, his ears are usually fine. He responds well to it. So.
Sure. Yeah, that's not uncommon because in the beginning when you introduce it, like it's like kind of boot camp.
Okay.
So you're using it way more now. The more you use it now, the less you use it down the line.
Okay.
So like my guys, and also like how you go about it. So a lot of people, either trainers or dog owners, or just like the general viewership of like these kind of tools, will like comment on, well, the dog doesn't look happy and this, that. Like, it's not about the dog being happy, it's about the dog behaving themselves, because that's a problem, right? My guys, when I first started e-collar training, they didn't like it.
Okay.
Now they come running to it, because they know it means going for a walk, off-leash freedom, all that stuff.
Okay.
Because when I first started playing e-collar, it was very boot camp-ish. So when it comes to the standard family pet, I tell people, especially when we got behavioral stuff, which yours has actually been going very smoothly, coaching, in comparison to others. So it's either the more you work them through it, you have a good job.
No, come on.
The more you work them through it, the more you press them out of his comfort zone. We can also use positive reinforcement for the e-collar. So like I show it to him before we put it on. I give him some treats. I put it on, give him some treats.
Okay.
When we remove it, I'll grab it, give him some treats. Remove it, give him some more treats. And you do that 3 times a day, you're gonna make very good progress. If you do that, I use very high value stuff like turkey, sausage, hot dog, cheese, as long as you have allergies.
Okay.
I don't mind using human food for rewards. It's good for us. It's fine for them. But not the biggest. Like, don't be too concerned about it. Because at the end of the day, it's just he needs to behave himself.
Yeah.
Okay. And over time, once he learns the rules of the game, you'll start to see him relax. Okay.
Cool.
Anything else?
The only other thing. So my question was, when I let him break, he'll respond to it, and then he'll start pulling me. And so because he was so natural to me on my right hand side, I say break and he'll cut over. He wants to go see who's over here. So then he'll start walking. To get him back on this side, it's a whole ordeal. It's like I'm clicking this instead of trying to get him back over here, and he's freaked out.
Correct.
So just trying. What I've started doing is I'll just walk to him and then face whatever direction he's in, and then click it. Okay.
So one thing I would change is if he goes to your right and you stay like this, when you try to move forward at this stage, very hard for him to know this. Okay. So then another thing you can do is simply go like this. Now it's a straight shot to your left side as you start walking. That should be an easy solution.
Okay.
Also, what you did, put him in the sit or even while he's standing, positioning himself. Not a problem. When we talk about obedience stuff, I know a lot of trainers or other trainers will stress about like it wasn't taught correctly, the way your placement was incorrect. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just need the dog to not be reactive, walk right next to me, and go potty when I tell him to go potty, and call him back, come back, right? Like, those standards are meant for training competition stuff. They don't apply to life. Does that make sense? So you just get rid of all that crap. What I focus on is family pet. Good dog that's well behaved, that we have control over, so we can do more stuff. Okay. Now, if I get a client that absolutely wants to know those nuances, and they're gonna put in the time, I teach it. I get like, no, not even that. In 10 years of training, I've had like 3 people do that. Okay? Nobody cares about it.
Right.
Okay? So if anybody ever tells you anything, you know, just tell them like,
smiling at you.
yes, who cares? Okay? Everybody's got an opinion, right?
Of course.
So that's fine. So yeah, and as you put yourself in more situations and stuff, you know, like I have no problem with like that. Yeah, perfectly fine. Right? If that helps them figure out that part, then great. You may find yourself sometimes just having to close that gap. You know, if it works, it works. Okay. Anything else?
No. You did very well. There were a couple instances with dogs, because we're in Oak Park, so it's much more of a neighborhood.
Sure.
There would be dogs in their yard barking at him, to which he would react a little bit, but as soon as I clicked it,
dogs in yard. So what is that by Elmwood?
Yes, it is close to Elmwood.
So that's the track.
I teach there,
Do you?
and I coach there.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. So man, it sucks when I have to go over there.
Yeah.
Dogs behind fences and stuff.
Yeah.
Other reactive dogs, that makes sense to me. Okay, so we have a spectrum when it comes to reactivity. Human reactivity, human reactivity, or reactivity towards like bikes, skateboards and stuff, is almost always the first thing that grows on. Okay. Then it's like calm dogs. Then it's excited puppy type energy. Can you call your dog, please? Thank you. We have human reactivity. Then we have, just a normal dog walking by. Then we have excited puppy type energy. Other reactive dogs, and then like dog behind fences is in the same category.
Okay.
Then there's the holy shit, there's a dog, right? That's end of spectrum.
Okay.
So you're like at, 1, 2, 3, stage 4. If I see reactivity there, not the biggest deal at this stage of training, because you want to think that they're throwing out threat at him, and then he's responding. Okay, it's like kids. When I was growing up, my mom was like, they could be talking crap to you, doesn't mean you talk crap back, right? You go tell a teacher or whatever. Obviously, he technically his teacher, I suppose. But dogs go into some things, right? Like, okay, you're gonna throw out threat, but you can disagree with it. Okay, and it's exactly what you did. You just tapped him, he shuts up, he goes back to your side, and you keep going. Now, if you want that lesson to resonate, you want to repeat that back and forth a few times, okay? Because even though you stopped it easily, correct? It wasn't like an ordeal?
Yeah.
Good. Is he doesn't really retain, it's kind of like, okay, barking, mom, maybe shut up. But if you shut him up, and then you walk past 3 or 4 more times, and he's quiet and passive, as this is happening, he's then processing, I don't need to respond to that. Okay? So then the next time you pass by that house, you may not even see it.
Okay.
What you might see, if you do it, the first approach is just tap and keep going, is every time you walk by, you'll have to tap and keep going.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
If we get
and this is regardless if the dog is out or not, it's just associating with that house?
Correct.
Okay.
Dogs are really good about with their memory and stuff. So let's say you have a certain path that you walk and there's 5 dogs that are typically in the yard, and once you get them over that, easy peasy. Okay. Then you will find yourself rarely ever having to do anything, and maybe a time that you do is because it was really intense or caught them off guard, right?
Yeah.
But dogs will remember which houses have dogs behind fences. Okay. If you want to help improve his reactivity even more, change up that route. Put yourself in a position where you're like, I don't know who has dogs behind fences. You can use space to your advantage. If we're walking this way and all the fences are here, you want them here.
Yeah.
Right? It's the easiest. And if the sidewalk, if that's where the fence starts, and I place myself here, you're creating more space, less stress. Okay? Don't feel like you have to be right next to the fence with him right here. Okay? Because people have asked, can I do that? And technically you can. If you really want to push the behavior. But it's also kind of a shitty thing to do because it's not realistic.
Right in there.
Yeah, it's not realistic. That's what I always think about. Is this realistic? Are we gonna find ourselves in the context where you're gonna have to do that? And if the owner's answer is yes, then you're gonna have to practice it. It sucks for your dog, but you need it, right? The way I liken it to people is, you ever seen the movies when they're bringing a person down a prison, and there's all the jail cells, and they're reaching out and they're saying shit and screaming at them, and you see the person this walking through? I feel like it's the same exact thing with the dog. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So obviously, people don't like that.
Yeah.
Why with the dog, right? So then I utilize space to my advantage. In some cases, and this is just FYI, the dog will react, and the owner will go into the turn and tap stuff, right? But the dog will keep blowing up at the fence. So we have obedience mode, and then we have behavior mode. The turn and tap is obedience mode, right? And it can sometimes address the issue. If I get a dog that goes, screw this, man, screw your heel, this dog is talking crap, I'm going to go lunge and talk crap back. Then what I do is I'll allow the dog to go and hit the end of the leash and be lunging, but not allow them close to the fence, okay? And then I start remoting and jumping it, so the dog's being corrected for doing the behavior,
Understood. Okay.
right? So
Okay.
you're allowing them to just get there, right?
Yeah.
Let me at him, let me at him. I'm like, go ahead, buddy, right? But then this is gonna happen. So the dog thinks, okay, I tried when I wanted to do,
Yeah.
but then I didn't even get to the threat.
And that's more of what he or previously did on dogs. So would you recommend starting there so like correct that so he knows like me lunching is where I should be and then get him to
Depends on the case.
Okay.
Have you seen that since you started?
In the last week it only happened 2 times.
Okay. And those 2 times it happened, what was the context?
One most recent was last night. And when it's dark he's naturally he gets ornery. Yeah. So it was darker. The fence you couldn't see through it. So I had no idea there was another dog behind there. But he picks up pretty quickly. So he was already trying to break the field. Like I could see him
Sure.
kind of. And then he jumped at the fence.
Sure.
And then he ripped it.
Sure. So in that context, if it just happens, my first instinct, if I know it's, again, like if you're in Oak Park and you're like, yeah, it's quiet, I'm not worried about dogs walking by, then I just crank it and pop, because I don't care about the number really.
Right.
I care about trying to stop it as soon as possible. Because then he thinks, how'd you say, stimulus, reaction,
Yeah.
harsh consequence,
Yeah.
like that.
Okay.
So the next time, should that happen, that same context, you'll literally see him think about it, but then jump back because he's expecting 74.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So if that, and you can also take time. Like there's no, that's why I like fences because there's no rush really. The only issue that you may come across is the owner. I've had dogs in Elmwood Park where we're working with the fence because it's a controlled context, right? Because the owner's like, well, what do I do if the dog looks and barks? You know, and the person on the walk. And I'm like, well, ideally you want to resolve it before they leave. They're like, yeah, but almost always they're in a rush too. So then I go use dogs behind fences. Because it's the same stuff, except one dog's behind the fence, the other dog's on a leash, right? And then I've had owners come out and say, like, what are you doing? And it's like, oh, we're trying to dog sit. They're like, well, please leave my house alone, right? All right. But that's just something to keep in mind. And you can even, like, I know that was kind of cut you off guard. But if you start to see him act up, he's already telling you. But I might just preemptively bump it, right? Because you know something's about to happen, right? That's your gut. So I crank it, maybe 30 or so levels, something ready for it to happen. I keep moving as if nothing's going to happen. He responds, and I'm already there. Okay, we have an off this dog walking. Just a little bit more to the side. What was the other instance?
So your example of the dog being very close to the fence would be if it's a safe hypothetical situation. He was walking just like this, and those were the houses, and the dog was just kind of laying at that fence, just sniffing into the yard. Very passive, but he was the one that went after the dog.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, so it would have been like similar to where this woman is, and then right there on her lap was a fence with the dog. The dog was, and it's blatant, like it was one of like the iron gated fences, so you can see through. It's similar to here.
Sure.
And the dog was just laying there, kind of sniffing out. I don't, whatever the dog was doing, but he gave no warning. I don't know if he.
Sure. Okay. Did you see dogs higher on that walk?
Yes.
Did you have to remote them at all during that walk?
Yes. Because we're dogs.
Okay.
Right.
Did you feel like you shut them down completely on that walk?
Do you mean
Like-
scared him to get him to?
To just like right now, like you see his energy here.
Yeah.
Like you would say, I would Tom would say like he looks scared. I'd say he looks cautious and passive.
Yeah.
So when he goes into stimulation or into reactive mode, people will stop it, but
Okay.
the dog is still a little pumped.
Okay.
So then you have to shut him down to be passive.
Okay.
Oh.
He was definitely not down.
Yes. So that's most likely why that happened. Because I call it stacking. So like in your case there was moments, right? But like I'll have a dog owner say like, Jesse, we had a great walk, we saw 20 dogs, but on the 21st dog, the dog blew up. Why? I'm like, probably because you didn't see something those first 20 dogs, and the 21st was, it just kept building. So that's why that's why I like standing aside if possible, because it allows you to fully assess, like, is he completely de-escalated, right? And if he is, and then I continue, we're starting at 0 every time after we either had a reactive moment or the owners had to, shut the dog down, and they shut it down completely. It's very visual. Because when you're walking, it's hard to see him completely, right? The ear placement, the
fact that
eyes.
he's looking at me is that usually a sign too. So like in the instance that I just gave, he would sit next to me, but his attention was still outward.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, I don't care that he looks outward, right? I don't need him staring at you because that's not realistic.
Right.
However, it does indicate he's not fully self. You have him like at a 2 out of 10 right there. Because he's still concerned about what's behind him. Okay? So that you would correct. I don't care where he looks, but if there's dogs over here and he keeps trying to look back there, I would remote him until he stops, and then he's more kind of looking at this thing.
Okay.
Okay? And you might see heavy head, really big eyes, because he doesn't like having his back to a potential threat.
Okay.
Okay? Other questions?
No, those were the two things.
And what's your number been roughly?
When we're in Oak Park 10.
10?
Right now we're at 12.
12? In total for the week, so you had 2 lunges,
Yeah.
but then you also had let me clarify.
The one last night when we did it, I mean, I don't know what number it was. I just clicked it. He kept clicking it. Yeah.
Sure.
And he did similar to when, so he was still going, and I don't think he realized it, so I kept moving it up, and then he did on the catwalk, like what he did for me when he started jumping.
Sure. At the end of a thing like that, always look at the number.
Okay.
So it gives you a reference point.
Okay.
So you had the 2 lunges, right? And then outside of those, when I think of reactivity, I always think of like worst case reactivity, right? Lunging, barking. A lot of times when my clients talk about reactivity, it'll be like, well, the dog still looked, but they didn't blow up. Does that make sense? Is that what you're seeing right now?
Yeah, on the first, like Monday, Tuesday, I think he was still so afraid of the concept
Sure.
that it was like eyes forward.
Sure.
The tail was still between his legs, ears were back.
Sure.
That slowly changed, and that's when he became a little bit more, and he would start to probably do it.
Sure. Okay.
So
you started scouting more?
Yes.
Okay. So what I would do is we're gonna play with our number.
Okay.
Okay. So the easiest way to try to address reactivity is preventative. Where we're so, like you said, Monday, Tuesday, he was so cautious and scared of the remote that he's like, I'm gonna be extra good. But then when he started to kind of get comfortable with it and the concepts, then he started getting that confidence, right? And it sounds bad, but you want to keep him like Monday, Tuesday, okay? And it's not that he's forever gonna look spooked. It's just mentally he's just not wanting to kill you, okay? And that prevents the reactivity from popping up, okay? We can do that through simply raising our number for obedience. So then he's like, crap, I get 18 just for even like leaving mom's leg an inch, right? That he doesn't want to go to the next degree. And we just play it by ear. That would be the next thing that we do. We'll keep it at what we have today for teaching purposes. But in Oak Park, I'd have you start with the number of 16, 18. That's going to be your baseline, okay? If you're going to go out one day and get a yip, don't dial it down and have you keep it. And then throughout the walk, if you had to correct him, if he keeps yipping, yes, you can dip it down. Okay? But sometimes it's just you're coming in higher that you're catching him off guard. Correct. And then we'll see what that addresses. And then if you have to end up jumping the number at the end, just look at it. Because then you know, like, if he kept lunging at something and it passes, and you didn't stop him, and you look and you're like, 74. Now I know up to 74 doesn't work for that particular context. So if I should see that happen again, I'm already jumping to 80, right? I'm going a little bit higher. Sorry, I'm going from that previous reference point. And sometimes it would work in that context, you know? And then people feel bad. I'm like, you can't. You gotta let it go because if he wasn't being a little jerk, he would have been
Right.
okay? Other questions?
No, those were my big two.
Excellent. So what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna do a quick review. I'm gonna have you show me how he's been walking, and then we're gonna work on the second half of the deal today.
Okay. Same concept, you just want to...
Yeah, just a back and forth. Yeah.
That's normal too. I'll like anticipate the sit.
Sure. Yeah. That's my dogs do that. Now, what I'm gonna have you do on this next one, if he anticipates the stop, I'm gonna have you keep going.
Okay.
And then tap him to
Tap
pop
it?
him like that.
Okay. Should I slow down a little bit?
Excuse me?
Should I slow him down to make him think that I'm gonna turn?
Yeah. Yep, keep tapping. Good. Good. Right, good. Good turn. One more. Good.
I forgot to mention too, the last 2 days I've actually done it without the muzzle.
Okay.
And I do know that that's the
whole rubbing it.
Yeah.
Good. Looks really good. Okay. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna add a cue. So now you're gonna have your on switch,
Okay.
which will make things easier for you. Because I know in the beginning for a lot of people, they're like, when does the dog know how to walk with you? As soon as you tap that button, they're like, now. I'm like, they just do. Okay. And we have a little pup just so you know coming behind you.
Okay.
And what I would do here is put a short a little bit more in your left. Now you're keeping yourself closer. Okay, so that's going to put you more at an advantage. If something happens, I want you to always remember to just straight up.
Okay. Hand tap.
So, what we were talking about? We're in the heel words. Now you have an on switch. So technically, if you come out with Gilmore and you've not set heel, technically you can do whatever.
Okay.
All that stuff. Once you cue that word, then everything will kick in, and then at that point it's his job to pay attention to you. Then it's your job to reinforce what he's supposed to be doing. So it's like in school, you know, before school starts at 8 a.m. or whatever it is now. Kids are talking and all that stuff, but as soon as the bell rings, like everybody's making it to the class, you're getting in their seats, and it quiets down, right? Because that bell, and you have another bell coming, means structure is now in effect, right? Same thing for the heel. Then we're gonna start working with turns. So you know when you're gonna stop, you know when you know left turn, you know when you're right turn. To cue the dog, we do very specific leg movements, okay? Good. We do very specific leg movements, okay? People tend to do these naturally until I tell them to do it intentionally, okay? Yeah. So it's okay if you make mistakes, that's what we're here for. So for the heel, it's gonna be super simple. You're simply gonna say the word heel first, and then you're gonna move forward with your left leg first, okay? This is forever. In more advanced training, left leg means walk with me, and then right leg means you don't move, okay? So we start conditioning that simply by making sure that every time we move, we use that left leg first. Dogs have a wider peripheral range than we do, so that's why like when he would slow down and stuff, he's able to catch it because he sees that change in speed and is able to get his attention. Oh, okay. So he's going by what's going on here. Okay. When we go into the turns, when we make our left turns, you're gonna always again slow down prior to that turn, and you're gonna want to lead it with your right leg. You're gonna make a 90-degree cut right in front of Gilmore. Very pronounced. Okay. People tend to do soft lefts. You want to do a very hard just cut in front of them. Otherwise, it's going to be too soft. You're going to end up cutting them out. Okay. So what a lot of people do is they're trying to turn left and they lead with the soft right movement, and then the dog's already here, and then they go like this, and then it sends the dog out. Okay. So we want to make sure it's a very sharp cut right in front of them. So a lot of dogs will stop when they see that happening, or they'll start to naturally turn their head, which makes way for my left leg, and then I cut in again with my right leg for the sake of space. Okay, so if you're like on a regular sidewalk, if you do this correctly, you would stay within the same path. Right, left, right. And walking, right, left, right. And also it's a very sharp cut. And if you're doing it correctly, you'll be just going back and forth in the right triangle. Okay? If you find yourself ending up in the grass or something, you did too many steps.
Got it.
So it's a 3-step movement. So it would be 1, 2, and then on 3, you're then going the opposite way. Okay? For the pivots, so you have your correctional pivots, which you just do this. Okay? You don't care about if he's paying attention or not because he's not paying attention. That's why he's ahead of you. For the times that he's listening or paying attention, you want to communicate to him like, hey buddy, we're actually going to go back this way. So again, you would slow down, but then you would extend your left leg, go back on your right leg, and then pull your left leg, and you're going the opposite way now. Okay?
That's how to turn around.
To the right. Correct.
Okay.
And then so it's left, right, left. So it's a 3-step movement as well. We have another dog corner, so you know. So left, right, left. So it's the same concept. If you're doing it correctly, you should stay within a singular path. Okay. A lot of people will do this, will swing their leg out like that. It doesn't work. Okay. You have to do the 1, 2, 3 step movements. And what you're going to see is for Gilmore, he's going to start curving around you. Okay. So it's going to be left, and then he sees what's going on. Start to turn right, and I will lag a little bit on this to give him time to come around, so that we end up syncing up after I complete the turn. Okay. If you're making a just a regular left, it's just right leg, and then you just keep going in that direction. Okay. Questions?
No. For right now, it's going to be 3 steps because we're actually changing 180. Right.
Correct.
That's why. Okay.
Correct.
But
Right.
as you just said, if I was actually just going to the right hand.
Correct. Okay. And like if you're to do a soft right, you would still lead it with the left leg, but you would just go like that. Okay. So it's awkward in the beginning when you have to think about it, but then you get used to it that it's like I can't do it incorrectly. That's really hard for me because it's so ingrained. So we're gonna do them in batches. The first thing I'm gonna have you do first is the heels. Okay. So all you're gonna do here is you're gonna say heel first and move forward with that left leg. You'll walk a little bit, slow down to a stop. Once you're at a stop, let him sit. Wait a moment, heel, and then left leg. You'll move, come to a stop, heel. Okay.
Should I meet him right now and just again?
Yeah. So this way you can correct him first, get the positioning correct, and then you'll do it the other way.
Okay. Heel. Heel.
Good. Just a couple more. Good. So that's just get your muscle memory going. Okay. Now we're gonna do the crossovers first because that's harder for people.
So I'm going left.
Correct. Leading with your right leg. You want to make sure that when you lead that turn, you're cutting very sharply, really pronouncing that right leg. You do want to make sure you slow down prior to the stop. Okay. So you're probably going to get that auto sit, right? Because he's so cautious right now. If that happens, technically it's not correct. Technically it's not incorrect on his behalf, right? So I don't care if that happens. But once you start to complete that turn, you'll want to start remoting, get his butt up. And after a few reps, you should start recognizing that the left turns isn't a stopping, it's you're turning, and I need to keep on. Okay? Questions?
No verbal command with the turn, just keep going heel.
Correct. It's all cued through leg movement. So technically, if you're doing this correctly, there should be no need for remote. Okay, so last week we worked on teaching Gilmore to pay attention to you. Okay? This week is you've achieved that. Now we want to teach you to communicate to Gilmore what you're doing. When you're stopping, when you're starting, when you're turning left, and when you're turning right.
Okay.
If you're coming to a turn, okay, and for whatever reason, Gilmore be distracted, right? So let's say you slow down, and he keeps going. He's not doing what you need him to do. People tend to try to rush through that turn to get around the dog. You don't want to do that. You would want to default to that correctional turn.
Got it. Okay.
Line them up first, and then try to do your left turn. Okay, and you're gonna have a dog approaching it in a little bit when you get time. Ready?
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Yep. Left.
Heel.
There we go.
Okay. Want it to the side or
You can keep it with just hugs to the side. Good. Go to slow, no stop there. So your right leg is really sharp, but you're doing like a no, you're doing like a pointed turn. So what you're doing is you're cutting in, and then you're cutting in sharper with the left leg, right? So think of it as you're gonna be right, left, and then on the right, you're cutting in again.
Okay, so I'm skipping.
On the left leg, you're cutting again.
Got it.
So you're like really
Okay.
yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Heel.
Left. There you go. You got it. Good job. Good. There you go. Good job. 3 more. Right. Tap, tap, keep going. Tap, tap, tap. Good. Keep them. I'm trying to keep them moving on that
With
turn.
me? Okay.
Yeah. You gotta bite them. You're good.
So if I know he's gonna sit.
Start as you're moving, you're keeping your momentum, you're tapping. Yep. There you go. Keep going, keep going, you got it, you got it. And relax. Let's try it a couple more times. Better, a little better.
I only hit it once that time because you messed up.
Which one? 12 now?
3 or 4. He's at 12.
Good. So, go ahead and slow stop here. So right now it's kind of awkward because you're having to really exaggerate it.
Yeah.
Okay. Once and sit. There we go. Once you get it down, you don't have to be so rigid.
Okay.
It's just right, left, right. But I already got the movements down. I had people exaggerate in the beginning because people tend not to walk so assertively unless they're kind of that kind of energy, right? So then once they get it, it's really just making sure that the leg movements are the same, but you're not looking like a soldier.
Got it.
Okay?
Yeah.
But in it, like when I did it myself in the beginning, I was exaggerating it.
Okay.
That's what helped me, and then you just become the part of you don't need to. Okay? So now we're gonna do the pivots. So that's gonna be the left to the right, to the left, and then back to the other way.
Okay. And you just kind of hang on the left foot.
Yes, because that gives him time to come around. Okay. Now, because he has that habit of sitting, if he does that and you get to here, tap here, because that's where your movement's going.
Okay. So as soon as I start coming the other direction, he should be right there.
He should be there. That's why I was trying to address that. I don't really care about the sitting that he's doing. I get it, but I'm like, that's going to be a problem just when you're doing your movements and stuff.
Yeah.
Where he locks up and the next thing you know, you're like moving and then he's already stopped. Okay.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. Heel.
Left. Right, there you go. Oh, that's good. Training.
Heel.
Right. Feels like a moving zip there.
He is.
Yeah, you're like this. You're like
Squat.
The first one was the best one so far.
Okay.
Right, there it is. Good. So you did sit, but then you curved around for a tap.
I did tap.
Okay.
Should I keep saying heel when I turn around and swing?
No, so you only say heel from stationary.
Got it. Okay.
Good, yeah, very good. Questions about that so far?
No.
So what I'm going to have you do here is same thing, but you're going to freestyle it, right?
Okay.
Left turns and pivots and right turns and stuff.
Okay.
Speeding up, slowing down, stopping, starting. If you're doing everything correctly and just paying attention, there should be no need for remote really, aside from maybe the sitting to movement stuff. And try, so people tend to do a lot of distance when they do stuff. Try to throw in a part where like it's a lot of turns within a small space.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And it'll show you exactly how much attention you have, but then also how important leg movements are. Because again, it doesn't matter that's being done within a small space, because he's so focused, he should catch every turn, and there should be no tension nor remoting. Okay? Questions?
Nope.
And then with the heel thing, when you said, should I say heel at every turn? We only say it from stationary to motion, or if you release him from a command and you need to be initiated, so we told him break, he is on his own time, and you're ready to go. Okay, heel, boom, we start walking.
Okay.
Otherwise, you will be saying heel. Exactly, right? So I say once to start it, and there's technically, so going back to leg movements, if I move forward with that left leg, technically if I've cued heel, it's in effect, right? So if I come to a stop, technically I don't need to say it again. I just need to move forward with that left leg, and the dog should default into it, right?
And eventually that's where we're going to get him.
If you want.
Okay.
It's a personal preference.
Okay.
I always say heel. Like if I'm utilizing the command, I always go heel when I go from stationary to motion. I've had clients say that they don't like saying heel every time they do that. And I'm like, all right, then just say it the one time. But just remember when you release them, you'll have to reinitiate it.
Okay.
Or if you give another command like sit down or stay or something, then you have to initiate it again, because now you have to override the
Got it.
command, right? So it's really personal preference, but definitely at least for a couple of weeks, you want to utilize that word because you're him.
Yeah.
He's got to get that concept of heel means be here and then follow mom's every move.
Okay.
Once you've taught that and you decide like, yeah, I only want to say it once and then whatever, then you go to just a leg movement.
Okay.
Okay?
Cool.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Heel.
Good. That's good. Good. Yeah. Sure.
If he kind of anticipates, that's okay.
I'm sorry, what was that?
If he starts to like, so that last one, because he started to turn left while I was still kind of going down, so.
I didn't catch it. I didn't see him too. I thought he actually delayed a bit and then ran out to you.
Okay.
My perspective. Turn. There you go. That was a nice little twist there, buddy. Good. A few more.
Heel.
Nice. Good. Good. Let that left hand go.
Like actually release it from the.
Yeah. Just hold it right. Yeah. There you go. Good. Yep. And then here, do some incremental steps, like 3 steps to 5 steps.
Okay. Heel. Heel.
Good. Now this one, what you're gonna do, you're gonna stay heel. You're gonna lead out with your left foot, and then you're gonna immediately pivot into that turn. Okay. There you go. Beautiful. And slow to stop. Excellent. Good job. Perfect.
Yep. Okay.
So, does this make sense now? Just like the bigger picture. So that is heel. Okay, like family pet heel. It actually gets even more advanced, but there's no, you don't need it. Okay, but that's so the reason why the turns and the cues are important is because if you're going on a walk for him, you're going to be turning, right? And in this case, you're doing abrupt turns and stuff, and you were able to because of the context we're training, right? So he's at a more heightened state of focus. But in a realistic scenario, when you're walking in one direction for 20 minutes and you're just trying to cut in front of him, you have to slow down. Okay. So just keep that in mind. And again, as long as you're walking and all your cues are correct and he's paying attention, it should be a breeze. Okay. What I do suggest in the beginning while you're learning these things is at the beginning of a walk, he does his potty break, and then you do like 5 heel stops, then 5 heels into like right pivots, and then 5 heels into left turns, and then start your walk. Right. So it's like a quick little warm up, and then once you get it down, you don't have to do that. You just do your walks. The next tricky part is going to be utilizing these things in real life. So now as you're walking, you need to make a left turn at the end of this block. Now you got to start timing your legs and stuff. Okay? So that's where the slowing down comes into play. Because if you're slowing down, and it's at least 3 steps, more is fine. Okay? And then once you get used to it, you don't even think about it. You're just doing these things naturally. Okay? Questions about that?
So naturally, if I am going to take a left, all that I actually need to do is swing that right leg.
Correct.
You want to time and then
Just keep going. And the same thing with the right turn, you would swing that left leg, but you'd be going to your right and you just keep going. Those we don't cover because they're so easy. As long as you know what to leg lead with, it's not a problem. Okay? Other questions?
No, I mean he seems to be the one. So over here, I think he knew that we were going to come back. So I swung like the leg left, and then as I was taking this step to keep going, he was already going back in this direction before I pivoted.
Oh, sure. So yeah, so is that what you're talking about, anticipating?
Yeah.
Right, so if you keep going, because you threw him for a loop, you would remote to bring him back this way. Okay. One thing to point out was earlier, and you did this actually naturally, which I really liked, was you had turned, and right after you had turned, there was like a bite. You just fucking kept going, right? Good. Okay. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so the reason why I point that out is we had a dog, it was yesterday, it was Astro, was it?
I wasn't here.
Oh, you weren't here, that's why I was for you. My bad. Good excuse. So I was here with my other trainer, and we're working with a pitty, and he's super nervous. And he turned, and a bike came by, the dog scuttled, right? And then the guy kind of delayed, but he did recover and keep going. And that was a good recovery. But even if I see the dog panicking, you'll always see me just keep going. because they're looking at you as a reference point, right? So most people's instinct is to stop. And when you stop, you allow the dog to continue with nervousness, okay? But they can only do one thing at a time. He's either going to be whipping around in nervousness, or he's going to be walking with you, right? So at some point, if I keep going and I remote him, he's going to see me, he's going to have to go, right? It teaches the dog how to recover quickly, okay? Because you may have things in life that just come up abruptly, and it's going to send him off, right? And if you keep stopping and you keep rewarding that or reinforcing that behavior, it's going to get worse and worse, okay? So like my Chihuahua hates CTA buses and like dumpster trucks. So in the beginning, when he would hear them, he would always jump back to the end of the leash. And then I would keep walking and remote him. Now he like go like this, but then you'll see him immediately forge forward because he's anticipating the hit. Okay, so now I don't have that constant problem. Other questions?
No, just as you were talking, just a thought. Does it also just keep him aware that like I am the guiding? Like, if he gets nervous, just follow mine.
Right.
That should be his call.
Yes. You're his what's the word? Foundation, right? And that's why it's very important that we're always neutral. I'm never looking sad about things. So like let's say the e-collar, where people say like, oh, the dog is afraid or doesn't like the e-collar. And I'm like, well, how do you put it on him? And they're like, you know, like I know I don't like it, you know, and I'm like, that's why your dog doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Dog, sure, we can get some like, oh, it's discipline time, but it's the human's energy. But if I'm all like, right, come on, bud, let's go, right, and I put it on, like, all right, let's go for a walk, right? It's just neutral or upbeat energy. The dog's like, well, if you don't care about it, I guess I should care about it, you know? It's like if you ask your friend's opinion about something, like, how's the movie? Well, right off the bat, you're like, I'm Muslim. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same exact stuff. He's feeding off your energy. When we talk about reactivity stuff, there's the, yes, he has to behave himself part, right? Yep. Here. There is the he has to behave himself part, but then there's your part, okay? So like, you guys fine? Good. A little ear movement. But then there's your part. And what that means is, one, don't be afraid to speak up for him. So like, you got lucky, you're 2 for 2, because last time it was that lady bringing her Aussie to us, and today there was that Spaniel, right? And you see me right, I'm advocating for you. I'm stepping in for you, right? So take that as an example.
Okay.
And then I think that you saw the video, the compilation that I put together.
I did.
Yeah. So that's like only some of the context I've been in. Like I've been in contexts where I had to actually get physical with the dog. Enrique just had a context like that, right?
Okay.
Feel free to, okay? Because he's your responsibility. And to him, if you're trying to tell him, hey, I disagree with your reactive behavior, you have to then understand where he's coming from, right? So if he's putting out threat because he, how'd you say, he's kind of like, well, I'm insecure and I'm anxious and nervous, and I'd rather put that threat out first and bluff it, right? Or even if there is intent, like keep them at bay so that you don't even get anything, right? You guys fine? You don't even get anything, and you tell him to stop it. Then he's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Right? So then you gotta step in. He's like, you just relax. I'll take care of it. So then dogs see these things where it's like, oh, a dog came at us and mom just put herself between us and like did something and the dog ran away. Mom was the reactive one. I don't have to be reactive. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's like with kids, we wouldn't look at a child to protect the parents. It would, you know, people would be like, why'd you let the kid protect you? Why'd you protect the kid? It's the same kind of concept here, okay? And they go hand in hand because that's what makes them feel more secure in your care. Okay, so like I am a very heavy-handed disciplinarian when it comes to dogs, I just understand dogs. And at the same time, when it comes to their safety, I don't care if I have a dog that's legitimately aggressive. If they are charged by another dog off leash, despite their issue, I would protect them as if they were a friendly dog. Because that's my responsibility. That makes sense? So, as you get used to like the dog world and all that stuff, there's going to be a lot of conflicting information in there, I think. It's really just, I feel like it just makes common sense. You know, when I explain things, people are like, oh yeah, sure, like I get it, I've been in this situation or whatever. But never be afraid to speak up, That lady, you know, I was polite with her because I saw the dog was chill, was pretty far away. I was like, oh, there's peace, you know, there's your dog. She saw your dog. Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Boom, right? A lot of people will be understanding. You're gonna get some people that are not understanding. Okay, it's just the way of the world.
We had 2 this last week, and I just used what you recommended for training.
Sure.
Mates, leash your dog.
Yeah.
They were super important.
Yeah, it works like 99% of the time. Okay, every now and then we get someone who's just like, ugh, right, and then you just have to keep her. Okay, good. Questions about any of that stuff?
No?
We got 10 minutes.
Okay.
Do you want to learn another thing before you go? Should be easy.
Sure.
So what we'll do is we'll start to do the stay command.
Okay.
Stay is like the least useful command, but it's just more stuff for you to practice, okay? So what I'm gonna have you do here real quick is do a little heel, come back, and then position Gilmore here, okay?
Heel.
Good. So what you're gonna do, since Gilmore's on your left side, is you're gonna take your left hand, and just wave it like this. Don't worry about if he sees it or not. Stay, and then you're gonna pivot out with that right leg to face Gilmore like this. Okay. Once you're here, you're gonna wait a moment, and then you're just gonna pivot back like that. Okay. If while you're going forward, Gilmore should get up, you're going to freeze whatever you're doing, pull up and tap to put his butt back down, and you want to keep him away. You want to prevent him from actually moving to you. Okay, because if you tap him and he sits in front of you, he thinks that's what he's supposed to do, right? So what we're trying to do here is when I pivot out, if you were to get up here, I up and tap, he sits down, and then I continue motion. Right?
Should it be animate stay or no?
No. Right? So all the stuff that we do, we always get the command once. The remote is essentially repeating it for you. Okay? Questions?
No.
So, stay.
Stay.
Almost. Back to his side. So Gilmore?
Okay.
That way. Yeah. So you did it this way, which actually kind of is not incorrect. But what we're trying to remember earlier, I said left leg means walk moving, right leg means don't move.
Okay.
Right? So this is that foundation.
Right.
So Gilmore here, stay, I pivot out. So I should be facing Gilmore. Right?
Got it.
And
Got
then
it.
back,
Okay.
and we're back in positioning. Right? So go into a heel and then to a stop.
Heel.
Good.
Stay.
There you go. Like that. Back to the side. We're gonna make one alteration. When you do that step out, keep your left hand where it is.
Okay.
Because you want to anticipate when you step out, you might have to use it to stop him. Okay. Heel.
Heel.
Turn. Good.
Stay.
There you go. Good. Back to the side. Perfect. We're gonna do one more.
Heel.
Good.
Stay. Kind of lean forward.
Oh, when you were moving?
Yeah.
So we're gonna do now, same thing, except when you step out after you wait that moment, I'm gonna have you do a half moon in front of him, and then back to his side.
Okay, so basically don't come 180 back, stop right over here.
So what you'll do is you'll come out in front, you pause,
Okay,
and then you're gonna walk in a half moon around him, and then come back to his side.
got it. Okay. Heel. Stay.
Right? That's okay. Now, that was all correct. I forgot to mention, sometimes when we're doing that, you see right away, it's like, well, you're moving, right? Because of your healing exercise, it's really like I'm supposed to be moving with you. So now we're teaching them to go against that, okay? That was okay. You did kind of do something like this, but the butt stayed on the ground. Something that you might see, especially when you start doing the full move around the dog, is that they'll be like this, and they'll do this, okay? I don't correct it. Because once they figure out, oh, you just want me to not move and be here, it almost always fixes itself, okay? So if that happens, as long as that butt's on the ground, he's not breaking the rules to the loophole. But as soon as if you were to see this, or a stand, or a down, you would up and tap. Correct. Okay. Heel.
That's the order. Pull first, then stop.
Or simultaneous. Yep. Door.
Heel. Stay.
Good. Up tap. Right. Then yep. Then you move it. Good. Okay. Get back to the side. Good. Heel.
Heel. Stay.
Tap. Good. Right. 2 more.
Heel. Stay.
Good. Tap, tap, tap. That's okay, good. Tap, tap, tap. Good. Tap, tap. Good. That was better. Up, tap. Giving up all night. So right there, it's okay. So you see how you ran back to you, right? So what we would do there is you were correct with what you were doing. I think you may have been a little far out. So go ahead and pivot in front of him.
Stay.
Sure.
Stay.
Okay. And what you're going to do here is going to take one step in. Okay? And like this, right? So what happened was, since you had so much slack up, he was able to move in. But when you have it that short and away, we're not worried about distance right now. We're just worried about keeping him in that sole spot.
Okay.
And then even if he would have gotten up, he would have been able to return because he doesn't have the space to. Okay. Let's try it.
Can we walk through this?
Yeah.
What's up? Yeah, you're good.
So, yeah, the software was great. It's fine to walk.
Heel. Heel. Stay.
You got it. Good. Okay. Great. Go back to the side. Good. Well, let's try one more. Pull up. I'm going to have you pull up like you did, but just before tension's going to kick in. Okay?
Okay. Heel. Stay.
Right. Much better. Good. So, questions about that?
Well, obviously, eventually, the distance.
Correct. You're just what we're doing here is teaching them that now there's another answer for the remote. Because last week it was here or shut up, right? Or put your butt down, right? Now it's if I say stay, if your butt's down, you go back into that position. So the way that I teach stay and the way other trainers teach stay is typically they'll say down and then they'll say stay. Or they'll say sit and then stay. In our training it's applied. Sit or down. If I say sit, put your butt down, don't move. If I say down, lay down, don't move. Stay, I use when the dog's already in position. So right now when you're walking, you put him in heel and he sits. It's not a sit. What is it? That's the what? So let's say you say heel, you come to a stop, what does he do?
You should be sitting.
Right, but it's not a sit.
Because I did not verbalize.
Correct, what's the command?
I don't know.
Heel.
Okay, that's part of heel.
Yeah, exactly, it's a package, right? And that's what confuses people. Because you're looking at the mechanical response, like it is a sit, logically, right? I'm like, yes, logically, but it's not a sit because you didn't verbalize it. It's built into the heel, it's an auto sit, right? So if you were to start moving again, his inclination would most likely be move with right? So then we say to stay, because human logic says, I can't say sit, you're already doing it. I can't say down, you've not taught it, so stay, right? And then I move out. So it's stay in position. So like in the house, if Gilmore were to lay down on the floor or something, and you were like, oh, I need you to not move, and you've already taught the down command, you wouldn't say down, you say stay. Now it becomes the down command, and you would reinforce it as if it was a down command. Does that make sense? So in terms of practicing an application for this, what I used to recommend is like if you're walking and you hit a red light, you can practice at a red light, you know? Do the half moon, and then once you feel like, oh, he's pretty solid, you can then do the 360. Let's say he poops, you know, up, tap, you'll put him in a sitting position. It's technically a sit, we just not set it, and then you would say stay, and you would reinforce it just the same way, okay? And then while he's sitting there, he'll pick his poop, come back, all right, great, heel, okay? So like, let's say a rule, not just say super common, but it definitely has happened to a few clients where like, picking up the dog's poop, and the dog's under command, and like something happens here, and the dog has something barking, right? Because technically the dog was on their own time, right? So the meaning of control is to prevent all that crap from happening, but I'll teach him to not do that. So here I can be a step ahead by giving him that stay, right? So he's already like, all right, mom, there's a dog coming, but mom told me, right? So it's not really a behavioral thing, it's a, I put you under control before the problem happened, okay? So that's like more of a realistic application for it. The last one, so stop signs. Oh, when you're gonna throw something away, you know, you can give a little stay. You still have the leash, throw it away, come back, and then heel. Okay, so that's how you can start practicing it without having to set up a training time. You just go about it on your walks, and then don't worry about distance. I would just worry about getting to the 360 part, and then once we get to long leash stuff, we'll start doing more distance stuff. Okay. Questions?
No. Too good a mom for us.
Yeah, that's good. Definitely focus on the healing stuff. If it was like a ton of information, I'd get that down first, and then you can progress into the states. Okay, awesome. If anything else, let us know. Otherwise, I will see you in a week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Jesse.
You're welcome.
Have a good one.
You too.
We're done. Heel.